phones are just going crazy. Rafa against Roger, semi-final Saturday. So I run back to the locker room. I see Rafa and I said, hey, how's it looking? How are you feeling? And he's like, I don't know. It's not looking good. Everybody's still thinking that they're going to play because obviously the announcement.
There's a question that keeps coming up in tennis circles, and nobody wants to say it out loud. Not the analysts, not the commentators, not even most former players. But Tommy Haas, a man who spent years at the very top of the sport, who reached world number 2 and competed against 3 generations of champions, he said it clearly, without hesitation. And when someone with his resume talks, you listen. Because here's the thing about Tommy Haas. He's not just another retired player offering hot takes on social media. He's the tournament director at Indian Wells, one of the biggest events on the entire ADP calendar. He sits courtside. He watches these matches from a few feet away. He sees things that television simply cannot show you. And when he was asked on the Behind the Athletes podcast to compare Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, the 2 players currently running world tennis, he gave an answer that every serious tennis fan needs to hear. Let's start with what Haas said about watching elite tennis in person, because this part is important and it completely changes the way you understand both players. He said that until you've actually sat courtside at a match involving Alcaraz or Sinner, you don't fully appreciate what's happening. Television flattens everything. You lose the height of the ball. You lose the spin. You lose the changes of pace. The screen compresses the violence and the precision of what these two are doing into something that looks almost normal. It's not normal when you're sitting a few feet from the court and you see how fast they react, how hard they actually hit, how little time they give each other to breathe. It's a completely different experience. And Haas has that experience. Every year at Indian Wells, he watches both of them up close. Not just watching the ball, but watching the player. The reactions between points, the movement patterns, the anticipation before the shot even happens, the focus, the hunger. Most people watching on their phone or their TV screen are seeing maybe 60% of what's actually going on. Haas is seeing all of it. So, when he gives his opinion on these two, it carries weight that most analysis simply doesn't have. And his opinion on Sinner first, because it tells you everything about why Jannik is the world number 1 right now. With Sinner, Haas said, you know exactly what's coming. That's not an insult. It's actually the highest possible compliment for a certain style of tennis. The moment Sinner gets a look at a short ball, a second serve, any situation where he can dictate, he takes it. No hesitation. No second-guessing. He compresses the court, hits the ball with enormous weight, and consistently finds the lines, both in length and in width. He plays dangerously close to his own baseline, which means he's taking the ball earlier than almost anyone else on tour, which means his opponents have almost no time to recover or reposition. When Jannik Sinner is playing his best tennis, Haas said he is extremely difficult to beat. And the reason is brutally simple. He makes very few errors despite the pace he generates. That combination, power plus consistency, is what has pushed him to number 1 in the world. You know what he's going to do. You just can't stop it. But Haas did identify one area where Sinner can still grow. His forward game. The net approaches. The touch shots. The drop shot. That part of his game, the creative, unpredictable part, still has room to develop. And Haas isn't wrong about that. If Sinner adds that dimension, the ceiling gets genuinely scary. Now, Alcaraz. This is where Haas stopped analyzing and started talking like a fan. He said Carlos Alcaraz is probably his favorite player right now. Not his pick to win every tournament. Not the statistically superior player. His favorite, because of what it feels like to watch him. And the reason is simple. You never know what's coming. With Alcaraz, Haas said, you cannot build a mental model of the next shot. You're watching him on the baseline, and you genuinely have no idea whether he's about to unload a forehand at over 180 kilometers per hour or drop a feather-light touch shot barely over the net. You don't know if he's going to punch a flat drive through the court or float a heavy topspin ball with ridiculous margin. You don't know if he's going to stay back and grind, or suddenly rush the net, or attempt a serve and volley that you haven't seen anyone do consistently since the 90s. Haas listed his tools: exceptional touch, defensive backhand slice, drop shots from anywhere on the court, the forehand that generates speed very few players in the history of the sport can match. And then the movement, the ability to defend incredible positions and somehow recover and go on offense from balls that should have ended the point 2 shots ago. Sinner gives you certainty and excellence. Alcaraz gives you chaos and genius. Both approaches work at the absolute highest level. But only one of them makes Tommy Haas sit courtside at Indian Wells watching the player instead of the ball, unable to look away, genuinely not knowing what's about to happen next. That's the difference. Sinner is a system, a perfect, ruthless, near unbreakable system. Alcaraz is something else, something harder to define and harder to prepare for. And if you ask a former world number 2 who has seen everything the sport has to offer up close from a few feet away, which one he would pay to watch, he already answered that question.